welcome to the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders at B2B services, tech, and SaaS companies to learn the systems and processes they've used to create success for their business. We'll also learn from marketing and sales experts to provide insights to help you grow your business. I'm your host, Mark Osborne, and the podcast is brought to you by Modern Revenue Strategies and their 10x ROI B2B Growth Guarantee. Schedule a free diagnostic call to learn the fastest path to double your B2B revenues in just 90 days. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Mark Osborne, and today I'm very excited to welcome Kathyrn Theile. Kathryn, and I'm going to read her bio, make sure I get it right. Kathyrn is a registered architect, AIA member, founder and CEO of Buildstock. Buildstock is a venture-backed B2B construction marketplace and Fintech software company. So they work with both buyers and suppliers of base building materials for the high-rise and industrial markets. And they offer materials, cost savings, time efficiency, improved cash flows. She's going to tell us all about how they do that. She comes with 10 years of experience as an architect and project manager in the construction industry, building high-rise development projects, managing over 1 billion across 20 different projects, 8 million square feet of mixed-use residential space. Earlier in her career, she also worked at CodeWorks, a code and zoning consulting firm for large developers. Throughout the execution of all of these projects, she's developed an amazing trusted network and strong relationships with general contractors, subcontractors, distributors, and manufacturers. In addition to all of this great work, she's a 2023 Next Gen Builder, a Beverly Willis Foundation Emerging Leader. She's on the 2024 Honors Committee and a fellow for 2024 Startup Leadership Program, on the 2025 Nominating Committee, and a lecturer at Cornell. So that's a big mouthful and a lot of impressive stuff, Kathyrn. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Mark. Awesome. Do I even need to be here after that intro?
Well, I know you've got a really interesting background and sort of tell us a little bit about kind of your path to get here at Buildstock, and really, what do you do every day there at Buildstock?
Yeah, and appreciate you for having me on again. So a little bit about my background, and yes, Kathyrn Thiele, thank you for having me on again. Founder, CEO of Buildstock. I came from very humble beginnings, started working at 13. My first job was at an auto body shop. I always was enthralled with the built environment. But I needed to get out of where I kind of grew up. It was a little dodgy. I went to school. I worked 3 jobs to get through school for architecture. I went to school out in Ohio, but I always knew that I wanted to move to New York after because of the scale of the construction projects here. Yeah. So one of the first jobs out was, like you mentioned, CodeWorks. We did code zoning consulting for a lot of high-rise builders like Tishman, Turner, Skanska, and the likes. And then I went over to Manhattan Building Company, and I spent almost a decade over there building ground up, fast track, design build projects, highly intensive. We would do like a tower a year or a tower every other year to give you kind of the scale, like 30-story buildings, 30-story buildings. I was initially hired in as their technical architect on their job, and then I kind of quickly moved over to the construction side. So I was managing all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structure, fire protection for their job. So anything coming in or going out, reviewing contracts, making sure that we had materials when we needed them, stay on budget, on time, schedule, walking banks around site, kind of the whole thing. And we would do everything from finding the lots to ground up constructing the lots to building management to leasing to selling it back to whoever our partners were. So soup to nuts, literally did everything. High intensity where, you get phone calls like, hey, we have 160 concrete trucks that's circling the block, like need you to come here to answer questions. A ton of fun. So yeah, initially hired in as their technical architect, and then I moved over onto Manhattan Building Company, their development company, but they have their GC, they have construction, they have self-perform. It's a really great company overall. And when I was working with them, especially during COVID, it was really hard to get materials. You never really knew what things cost. I'd get $500,000 change order for sheetrock, and I would have to justify it. And like, you can't Google like, what's the bulk pricing of sheetrock today? You won't find anything. There's no resources really for construction. people. So I have a ton of different stories. Like we forgot a steel beam in one of our bids for one of the last projects that I was working on before I left. And beam has a set price, but you can't go on Amazon or on Google and be like, I need a 60-foot beam. Where can I find this? Like, you won't find anything. So I ended up finding that beam. It was like 50 grand. By the time I got to my job site, it was like 200 grand. So even if you find the material, you're still paying these ridiculous, markups. There's issues with inflation, comparing materials. So really, everybody, like, especially on the job site. So I'd run the construction meetings towards the end of the, jobs, is you'd be asking like, where's your materials for this? And then everybody's saying 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks for 4 months. And I love all those guys, and I could, the war stories, that's what would keep us up at night and on the weekends. But yeah, I was like, if we always questioning, like, how things can be done a better way. So I'm like, if we use Amazon for everything else in our lives, why can't we both buy construction materials? Especially in that high-rise environment, like, the materials are almost commoditized, right? There's, once you get over 70 feet, it's considered a high-rise environment. Because that's, when you think about the fire truck, that's as far as the hose can reach. So anything over 70 feet has to be fully sprinkled, and then the materials actually change on those sites. So it becomes, it has to be non-combustible. So a lot of the materials that are on our marketplace are these like non-combustible repeat items, base building materials that you would use, whether it's a commercial building, high-rise residential, hospital, prison, the likes, drywall, metal framing, insulation, plywood, roofing, CMU. And yeah, so we started this B2B marketplace and Fintech platform about a little over 2 years ago. We have the layer of Fintech. So I think you were also asking me before about how we kind of complement a process that's already in place. So we allow builders to not only be able to pay up front for materials, but they also can get their 30, 60, 90 days or pre-approved up to $350,000 on the marketplace within like a few minutes, instead of the archaic way that things are done today. And then, yeah, our last kind of step to moat is going to be building out that software. So we did raise a round of funding. I do have an amazing group of employees. We do have customers now. We work with Turner, we work with Consiglis and Shawmett's self-perform units. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of amazing builders that we already work with. And yeah, we've been in the market, and now we're kind of in that scale mode.
That's a super interesting story, and something that you hit on there. So I know a lot of our listeners are, founders that come from deep expertise in an industry, and then they have an idea, for a better mousetrap. And oftentimes they're tentative about making that leap, and sort of really having confidence that they've identified a real market opportunity. Clearly you had, obviously all of the industry expertise and background that allowed you to then to sort of see this marketplace opportunity. How did you know? Like, what was it that gave you sort of the confidence that, like, there's really a there? Like, this isn't just an idea I had late night while I was stressing about getting this beam. This is actually a marketplace that's a business. How did you know that? How'd you prove that out for yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you don't just, like, coming from where I came from, where I didn't really have very much to fall back on, right? Like, I was homeless in the city, and I was like, it was really hard to make it work here. So to leave a really cushy job working for a developer that was really good to me was really challenging. And that's like going a year without having a paycheck. That's a year without medical. That's a year without your 401k. That's a year with just grinding and not even sure if it's going to work. So before I made the leap and left Manhattan Building Company, I got into the startup incubator. So they're out of Texas. I really like those guys. And I did hundreds of customer interviews with different builders, different suppliers, subs, GC, like everybody in the network. And I got a lot of traction really early. They're like, well, when you think about the stack, like a high-rise developer has to go through a GC to get material, has to go through a subcontractor, that has to go through a supply house, that goes through a distribution, that goes through manufacturing, like everybody's taking their markups. So anybody on the builder side can really see that if they take out a middleman, like one person in the middle, they can save a shit ton of money. I don't know how to curse, sorry.
Go for it.
Beep. So like if you're thinking about a 20-story building, it's like $100 million. And everybody that's taking their 15-20% markup, if you take out one of those middlemen, and I actually have this calculator that I offer out for different builders to be able to see, materials are about 50% and like labor is about 50%. But each like if you're doing masonry, it's probably more labor, less material costs. But if it's more like window wall in the building, then it'll be a little bit separate. Anyways, if you're able to take out one middleman on a $100 million project and you can save like $10 million, what if you could take out a second middleman? Right. And I want to take these guys' jobs. And what we actually learned going live is that the subcontractors, like, I don't want to cut them out. They actually don't have the access, just like a GC doesn't have an access. And what I mean by that is like most subs have like a one-to-one relationship with different suppliers. So like one of our builders, like Legacy, always goes to Camco for materials, and Camco has fantastic ceiling prices or drywall prices, but they might not have the best metal framing prices. They might not have the best like CMU prices or these different materials that they have. So they know that they're overpaying, but Camco continues to give them $100,000 credit line and will continue to deliver material. And on the other side, like, so they don't know that they're getting the best pricing. And that's one thing that really sets us apart is now you have access to the entire market of suppliers, of distribution, of certain manufacturers that will sell direct. And then on the supply side, they are also hedging themselves, right? If they're waiting 120 days to get paid, because it's the same thing. The lender cuts the check to the developer who holds onto the money, who cuts it down to the GC that buys the boat, who cuts it down to the sub that needs to pay his labor. Everybody has their different pain points that they have. So by the time that the supplier is getting paid for this, it's like 90 to 120 days later. So what is their incentive to show up? So they're hedging themselves by releasing materials slowly. They had these really high insurances. So that's why like 80% of projects come in over budget and over time. So it's like, how can you incentivize both sides? Like builders saving time and money, that's great. But on the supply side, you really have to figure out like, why would they play ball with you? Like what would improve their business? And that's what came down to, for us, we do not only supplying them like new business with different big builders, but also we pay them early. So instead of them waiting 120 days, we pay them in 5 days. So we're still complementing, like, and that was one of the things that you were asking about, like, the different systems. For us, it's more about complementing a legacy industry, but also creating efficiencies within all these different parts.
That's interesting. Well, and it's almost like the classic story of when you bring kind of, for lack of a better phrase, digital technology to bear in an analog industry, like just bringing together all of these different, sides of a marketplace, you get market efficiencies that actually benefit all of the players in that market because you're just sort of bringing them together. It's interesting though, and we were talking earlier about how, construction is sort of known as being a slow-moving industry, not necessarily the first to embrace technology.
Yeah.
But you talked about, sort of the big idea was to create, kind of a digital marketplace or an online marketplace or a marketplace at least, certainly empowered by technology, which is adding some speed, technology that's enabling some sort of ease of purchase and sort of that fintech piece. What has the experience been like in, trying to pull a, maybe slow-moving industry forward with technology as one of the core value propositions of your business?
Oh, such a good question, especially for like the other people that are trying to start businesses in this space. And that actually goes to like what we do on our sales side too. It's like, if I walk onto a job site and I'm like, you should use my technology, you should use my software, and you should pay me a monthly service for it. Like, they're going to tell me to get off their job site as quickly as I got on their job site. But if you go onto a job site and you're like, hey, where do you get materials from? I can save you $15,000 on the next buy. I don't even talk about technology when I walk onto sites because they understand savings. whether it's time or money. Time is always of the essence. They always needed like that truckload yesterday or 3 months ago. So yeah, that's been something that's like, I would say like pro tip, like try not to like lean in too much to the technology because I think it's just so much greater than that.
That's right. Well, and it's that classic marketing sort of advice, which is don't talk about the features, talk about the benefits, and which is exactly what you're doing. You're walking onto the site and talking about the savings that you can deliver. That's the benefit that comes with it, both savings in money and savings in time, which also has a money component to it. And then they want to know, well, how are you doing it? That's sort of the opportunity to talk about those features rather than leading with, hey, let me tell you about this new technology platform I have, which, as you say, would get you kicked off the site pretty fast.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of different archaic things like the kickbacks and the backroom deals, and you can actually legitimize a lot of that stuff through technology. There's a coupon code, but I think that the next generation, so there's a big divide. There's like a lot of the older players that are starting to age out. The next level of players that are coming in, they're not scared of technology. They went through it like you and I. Like we had to figure out what life was like before that and playing manhunt until 10 o'clock at night when your parents were trying to unlock the door and let you inside versus, and then you had to like figure out how to start using a computer. And then we didn't get cell phones until we were like actually adults. So like we're able to adapt to technology, I think, a little bit differently than some of the older players are. But even the older players, like during COVID, these guys, we would never use Zoom. Like, how great of a company was Zoom?
Right.
Did they hit at the right time or what?
Right.
But like my guys used to have flip phones, and then during COVID, they had to like figure something out. So like I would start getting FaceTimes. I never thought that I would see some of these 70-year-olds FaceTiming me, be like, "Can you tell me what this is, or can you tell me how to do a sketch for this?" But that's like, so I think the acceleration actually, I mean, a lot of people died during COVID and stuff, so there's nothing great about what happened. But in terms of the tech acceleration, it's really helped our industry to be able to question maybe there are different ways. And a lot of people hemorrhaged a lot of money during COVID. Now, for us, we were, the building departments were closed down. So it's not even like you could get permits, you couldn't get inspections. So we didn't have a permit to go vertical, and we still went vertical. Because we were like, we're spending so much money. It's not like you're not paying the money on the rent for that plot of land.
Right.
So we're like, if we get fined $10,000 a day or whatever it's going to be, it's still cheaper than what that rent is.
Wow.
Us on the schedule. So it's really incredible. We were also essential because we were building a prison in the basement of, or in the ground floor of one of the high-rise residential rental unit, which you probably, in retrospect, might not want.
Interesting. That's I didn't know they did that. I didn't know they built prisons in the bottom of residential.
It was supposed to be a firehouse, and then it turned into a police station, and then within the police station, there's like a bunch of different cells. So I thought that it was really interesting because I had never designed cells before with little toilets and the different entryways so they can't get out. So I mean, it's cool. Yeah.
So you talked about, and this is something that I think is so interesting, that one of the ways that you generate opportunities is you just go on site and talk to construction crews. Then in the lean startup or any sort of agile philosophy, they talk a lot about get out of the building and go talk to your customers. I think most entrepreneurs are like, okay, I'm going to get on the phone, but you're actually out on the field. Talk to us about sort of how you found your first set of customers. And I'm sure the interviews that you did as part of the incubator were helpful, and going out and being on the ground obviously is really powerful. But as you're thinking about expanding to new markets and other things, how are you thinking about expanding your sources for new customers and those sources for leads?
Yeah, I would say that we went through a lot of banging our heads against the wall in terms of the typical like SaaS sales strategy of cold outreach, even like a bit warm outreach in terms of like calls and phone calls. if they don't know you in the industry, they're going to hang up on you very quickly. It doesn't work. You need to get like, and just like in those books, like you have to get in front of your customers. And especially in the construction industry, they have to remember you. Even Zooms, I don't like to do because they don't remember you. Then like, and I'm the same way. I'm on 100 Zooms a day. I don't remember the conversations. It's, so always get in front of the customer. Founder sales is so important. You can't just be like, oh, I built it to this, amount, and now I'm going to bring on my first salesperson. You can't do that. You have to run the sales. And then once you're at a certain inflection point, then you bring on your next salesperson.
Yeah.
Just to complement your process and to be able to build that and then scale that. But yeah, cold calling is dead. I would say it's a very tricky industry because even like our construction workers on TikTok, probably not. Like, I'm like, you have to think outside the box. Like, do you pull an ad out in the New York Times? Do you pull out something on the radio because my guys are driving 3 o'clock in the morning from Delaware into the city for the day and then leaving by a certain time? So like how can you really be clever with your marketing spend? Not that anybody this early would ever have marketing spend. We don't. I actually make, should have had them around. Even like swag. I think swag is super appreciated. Like if I walk onto a job site and I get like a little bit of attention, I'm like, here's a $10 gift card. Will you talk to me? Or like they love mugs. They love everything. So we do bottles of wine with like Buildstock logos on them and humidors and put a star in them. And same thing, like Buildstock. And then I also make bags. So I do like very nice, sleek designed. I mean, I don't know how you find time for all this stuff, but you make time for it because I think it's really important. Your clients, especially your early clients, like they're coming on when you're still messing things up, when you're still figuring it out. And I would say that a lot of our early clients, they weren't the people that I had worked with in the past, but they were definitely people from whether it was AIA. I do a lot of stuff. Like I do a lot of stuff in the community. Service days, mentorship. We launched a mentorship program a few years back, which is still going strong. Cornell, you meet all these people at all these different industry events, and they can see how quickly, like, not only are we MWBE certified, so we're a women and minority-owned business at the city and the state level, which is really awesome, which took us a lot of time. It's 800 pages of paperwork. Highly recommend for any listeners. If you need any help, let me know. Also, I have a good lawyer that helps with that kind of stuff too. But if you're able to save people time and money on their construction materials that they need to buy anyway, it's not like a additional, like, nice to have. Like, you're going to need this material anyways. Do you want to save money doing it? And suppliers give us really good pricing because we pay net 5. Instead of paying 120 days later. So
that's a big difference.
Their whole unit economics, their manufacturing capacity, like they love working with us. And it's like, come to have dinner on Sunday with my family. Like those are the calls that I get. It is still such a tight-knit industry. You still feel like you're a part of this family. I'm not trying to cut anybody out. I'm just trying to make it a little bit more efficient.
That's so interesting. Well, and you talked about sort of the way you think through all of the different ways that you could connect with your buyers and with your customers. And one of the things that we see so often is that companies that really take the time to think through what does that customer journey look like? Like how could they become aware of other potential solutions that they might buy? What are the places that they're at that we could reach them? What would be the messaging that would connect? Companies that take the time to think through that come up with these creative ways of engaging with their customers and potential customers versus just buying ads like everyone else does. Then you're just another one in the stack. So that's really interesting that you take the time, and obviously that's what's leading to this traction. Not only do you have a good story to tell, but you're telling it well and in the right places. So.
And it's a different story for sorry to cut you off. It's a different story whether you're a subcontractor, whether you're GC, whether you're a developer, whether you're an owner, lender, but it's all the same thing. It's like, can we continue to build better every day? And then also leaning in, like I've been on the different sides, so I also know what their pain points are.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's that benefit of all that industry expertise.
Yeah.
So tell us something that you're excited about. What's on the horizon for Buildstock that you're really excited about?
We're going for another round of funding soon. So I am actually really excited about that, just because when you're able to own the numbers of the company, like I have amazing investors from our pre-seed round, but I'm very excited for the next round for us to have strategic investors. So we don't have any like construction industry specific investors on our cap table right now. And I think there's different investors, like JLL does a pilot program. So a lot of their LPs are big construction companies, and then they bring in their portfolio companies to have these pilot programs. So you can like work with them and help them save money, which is really fantastic. So it's funny because I've been like, I'm not targeting, but like RXR has a venture arm. So I'm like, and same thing with Suffolk. Like if I can save their construction side money, that is not as big of an ask when you're like, oh, I'm saving you money. You should give me money. But I think I'm very excited about where the industry is going. Like we have now Fintech laid on, like we do factoring, and like that's a really exciting side of our industry, and more than happy to talk a little bit more about that. But one thing that I'm excited about is like kind of like the AI and the opportunity within our industry. Like AI has only been around for a few months, and what it's done already has been absolutely incredible. And like for a lot of subcontractors, they might not use it, but for us, we want to be able to at least do like a third-party integration with an AI company, so we can take a set of drawings. We can enable a developer to take a set of blueprints, specs, and be able to put it into the AI, and then to be able to print out that material list with quantities, and then put it directly into our recommendation engine. So anybody that like might not have that expertise in-house, that developer or that GC that might not have that expertise in-house, and they end up paying somebody else to do it anyways, they're able to do it themselves. So it's like an all-in-one, like how can you make everybody be able to like have value in this and continue to be able to like grow and create the stickiness around the company? And it's a huge market. So, I mean,
well, and a really interesting use case
yeah.
too, to sort of take that image recognition capability, bounce that up against like a large language model of understanding, well, what would be the things necessary to create this type of building, and then turn that into a usable output like a materials list is that's a really neat application there.
And there's a few people that do it. Toggle AI is the guys from Coastal Construction down in Florida. We met with them. I'd be super excited to work with them. But if anybody has one of those AI companies, like let me know.
Well,
More than happy to talk with you and like look to see. And even going into like we went into Holt Construction. They do a lot of massive airport work, and they're trying to expand out. If anybody also needs other work done, they do a great job. But they have like, you go into their offices and they have like a group of like, 12 estimators that are sitting there, and you could just like, here's this program. Why don't you try it? And like, you'll have them all break it. It's so great because then you can get the real feedback of like what AI works right now, what doesn't work.
Right.
Just because we don't want to bring something on that's like not going to be successful for our customers.
Right. That's really. So you've obviously shared a lot of great insights with us today. Thank you so much for your time. I want to give you sort of a chance to, shine the spotlight on Buildstock a little bit. If someone listening is in that, construction space, or they're a contractor, subcontractor, what would be the reason you tell them to give you a call? Like, what would be the reason to work with Buildstock?
Yeah, we've saved builders up to like 40% on construction materials and 5 times faster lead times. So if you need construction material, let me know. I mean, if you're creating a savings, like that's the thing. You can have all these different biases and whatever, but when it comes down to the numbers and the money, like that's really what talks at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's
pretty
compelling.
Yeah.
Pretty compelling metrics. So if someone out there wants to get in touch with you, how should they get in touch with you, Kathryn?
Yeah, so Kathryn at buildstock.com or LinkedIn. Huge LinkedIn fan. So awesome. Very active. Or I'm at like a lot of events all the time. NAWIC is amazing. the NSA. We just have a lot of people that have been supporting us. So I'm super grateful. And I look forward to kind of meeting everybody.
Awesome. Well, Kathryn, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you for joining this episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast. We hope you've gained insights to grow your business. If you enjoyed this discussion, please rate, comment, like on your favorite platform, and share to others who will find it useful. Do you know a CEO, founder, or leader at an early stage B2B services, tech, or SaaS company who would like to be a guest and share their story? Send us a note. Let's schedule a conversation.